Hi, my name is Sam Casillas, and I'm a Navy veteran with about 15 years of finance-related experience, which the bulk of my experience has been through the governmental arena. Although I've earned several performance awards related to financial management, process improvement, and task automation, I've noticed that in the last few years that my true passion is understanding the story that data or information has to tell. I've learned that the data analytics space evolves quickly. Therefore, there is always something else to learn to help one do their job more efficient while discovering new insights, which led me to enroll in Savvy Coder's data analytics and Python bootcamp, hoping to improve my knowledge of cutting-edge processes and technologies that will enable me to solve some of my current and or future employers' challenges via data analytics. Today, I will be presenting my capstone topic, at which you'll notice is outside of any typical finance-related position, but has always been an interest of mine. And for the sake of keeping track or being organized, I will be walking through my project to discuss purpose of the project, reasons for selecting this topic, questions that guided me through my analysis, the data sources that I selected, and the data wrangling processes that I completed using Excel and both Python, which I will also discuss some of the challenges and breakthroughs that I experienced with these systems and through my analysis. And then I will be sharing my insights via Tableau, which I will be rounding out my presentation today, discussing agile methodologies that were applied throughout the Savvy Coders program, and my capstone project to include both individual and team projects. Okay, so oftentimes people move because of work requirements or have hopes of a different cost of living situation, and or they enjoy what a particular city or state has to offer entertainment-wise. However, I know in my case, I never truly understood how safe or unsafe an area is when deciding to move to a desired city or state, at which this capstone project, I have been able to complete this particular analysis. More specifically, my intent with this project is to analyze the types of crime that have occurred in Ohio from 2017 to 2022. I realize that this project can be beneficial to current and future Ohio residents and or governmental officials. Now, residents will realize some of the benefits of this project when they're trying to gauge how safe or unsafe their local community is. Now, for governmental officials, is a little bit different, but they could also benefit from understanding how effective or ineffective public safety related programs are throughout the state, any challenges that each region may experience, which can be determined by the types of crime occurring most frequently. And last but not least, governmental officials can also determine if adequate resources and or police staffing has been allocated properly throughout the state. Okay, so in an effort to stay organized and prepared to complete this analysis, I have decided to identify some questions up front that I would like to answer with the hope of understanding crime activity throughout the state. After establishing the business task, I would eventually need to determine what data is needed, locate that necessary data, and decide how I will maintain the data's integrity throughout the data wrangling process to believe in my analysis and to trust my analysis and gain stakeholder trust through sound data handling efforts. As you'll see, some of my guiding questions are to answer what are the major types of crime that has occurred in the state of Ohio? Are there certain types of crimes that are more common in both in small, medium, or large cities? Now, please note that I did decide and create a criteria using my own judgment, using small cities being determined by any city with a population of less than 100,000, medium cities being over 100,000 but less than 400K, and any city that is over 400K will be determined or considered a large city just for this project's sake. Now, please note that this will be specific to this project. I do understand that population throughout each of the 50 states differ greatly. So if I was to do a similar analysis for a different state, I would use a different judgment based on the different based on the population size of that particular state and or cities. Okay, so the next question I will be answering is, what is the year-over-year trend of crime throughout Ohio? And to see, are there any surprises from my crime data sets? Now, the data sources that I chose were, one was from the Ohio's Office of Criminal Justice Services, which it included the necessary information related to crime. And I'll show you in great detail of what was in the data, but it does include city, it includes the type of crime, it includes population, and for me, it has the level of detail granularity that will allow me to answer my project guiding questions, which is coming from a governmental agency. So for me, I believe in the source information. So to me, I really like this data source, given the fact that it is coming from a governmental entity. Now, I would like to also caveat that um, this Ohio, the Office of Criminal Justice Services, they had communicated on their website that not all um, Ohio law enforcement agency data is available through this reporting system, but it's realized that these law enforcement agency participation has increased over the years. Therefore, as time goes on and hopefully more and more agencies will use this system, we will have a better understanding of the crime that's occurring throughout the state of Ohio. As you can see from this snapshot here, the top right section here. Now, the bottom right section is a snippet of a list of Ohio cities and counties, which it does link. It has like a link between what cities belong to what counties throughout the state. And I like this data source because there is a clear distinction of what cities are, what counties each cities belong to, allowing me to be able to analyze the crime activity in both the city, county, and statewide hierarchy levels. Okay, now that I've identified my guiding questions, located my data sets, I will have to clean my data. Now, please note that for this project, I will be cleaning my data set, as mentioned earlier, using Power Excel, which I will be using Excel's Power Query feature, as well as Python. I understand that both data sets could have been cleaned in either Excel using Power Query completely or Python for this entire project. But for the sake of this capstone, I will utilize both programs to showcase how they can be leveraged in data cleaning step of any data analytics project. Please note that you'll see in this snapshot here that Excel's Power Query feature does record each step or action that's taken on a data source. So you can see on the pane to the right, you'll be able to see the actions taken there. But Power Query does use M code language, which is different than the traditional Excel formula features. Now, as for Python, which you'll see in the next slide here, the code is reproducible and repeatable by anyone with the same level of knowledge, at least with the same level of knowledge or more. But specifically using this program, Excel, I did export the crime data from the Ohio's Criminal Justice Services website for the years in question, which are 2017 and 22, on my personal laptop within CSV file format. And in Power Query, I was able to append all the data for each of the crime years files. I've removed blank rows. I transposed the data into vertical format. pivoted all the crime data and crime type into one column, which you'll see here. And I removed all property and violent crime counts subtotals since their individual offenses have been captured within the file already. Now, please note that the FBI defines property crime as offenses such as burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. And violent crimes are, they encompass offenses such as rape, robbery, murder, and or aggravated assault, which you'll see I created a crime category column here, the second to last column, and I extracted the crime year from each appended file, which you'll see on the first file, first column, the file name. I did name all the files in a unique format so that it would be easier to extract data from it. As you can see, so I ended up parsing out the year of the file name, which it ended up becoming the crime year column. I did remove all trailing spaces and trim using the trim function, and I ensured that the naming convention and the titles and formats are appropriate for analysis. Okay, so now for the Python cleaning process, in the top left corner, you'll be able to see that I loaded my packages necessary to complete this analysis. I read the HTML text information to include city, zip code, and county from the internet website. And I ended up creating a data frame for this parse data. And given that the scope of this project did not include zip codes, I did remove zip codes from the data set, and I added the state name to the data set so I can actually have the city, county, and state levels for this particular project. I corrected 11 county names for 11 cities, which these had, which are highlighted here, which had duplicates. So I ended up assigning the specific county names for those 11 cities. And I removed all null records for city attribute. And again, here for this, as I mentioned earlier, I did create that attribute for cities that are for the city size. So you'll see here on this code block here, I ended up assigning the small. As mentioned, small cities are identified with less than 100K population. Medium cities are over 100K, but less than 400K. And then large cities are over any city with over 400,000 in population. Then I ended up interjoining my data because I wanted the crime city data set to only have matching records of the cities on the website. I did, in case there were cities that were listing on the website, I didn't want to pull those in case any city names have changed over the history of the state of Ohio. But what I ended up doing was I exported the merged data sets into a master CSV file. Now, please note some of the challenges I did experience but overcame was the web scraping process here in Python because each website is different. Therefore, one scraping approach is unique to each website. Therefore, I did overcome this challenge through internet search and various tag ups with my team during our daily stand-ups. Okay, now in this slide here, you'll be able to see some of the analysis that I end up doing after I've completed the cleaning process and joined my data sets. As you can see, I did complete some exploratory analysis using Python, which is one way to analyze one's data set. Now, I did summarize crime category totals by year in the first slide here, snapshot, and then I summarize crime type totals by descending years. in the bottom left snapshot here. And then I ended up creating another summary or another snippet of group cities sizes for the crime year and the types of crime that occurred. So based on this analysis, you'll see on the right chart, the right snippet here, that larceny was the highest crime that has occurred throughout the city. I mean, the state of Ohio, which it would lend itself to the visuals that are about to be displayed in the upcoming points of this story. Okay, now that I've cleaned my data, wrangled my data set, it's necessary to present my findings using any applicable data visualization tool to communicate to stakeholders the outcome of my project analysis and insights gained throughout this project. Now, to gain the most value out of the data set, I will be presenting various charts in the upcoming slides here to show the data in different snapshots and vantage points, which will hopefully drive the main points home of this analysis. Now, as you can see here in the top left, the most here in the tree map, the size of each box is associated with each crime type, which the counts are reported from the years of 2017 to 2022, at which one can see the most reported crime during this times the top 5 were larceny, followed by burglary, aggravated assault, and motor vehicle theft. Now, using the heat map, this is another snippet and snapshot. One is able to see that most of the crime occurring are in 4 major counties, which is in the Cuyahoga County here in the top section, which I'm hovering over now. The Franklin County, which so Cuyahoga County includes cities like Cleveland. Now Franklin County does include the capital, which is Columbus. We do have Hamilton County, which includes the city of Cincinnati, and Lucas County, which is to the top left portion of this heat map, that does include Toledo. Now the last county is Summit County, which also includes the city of Akron. Now I did include like a pivoted style visual here just so that you can see, comparison's sake, what the actual numbers were for each of these top 5 cities, just so you could have a gauge of the reported crime throughout each year. Now, this total is in aggregate of all of the types of crime, not specific to any. Okay, moving on to the types of crime trends. So this is the year-over-year analysis. As I mentioned, so the property, which I broke it down by the crime category. So as a reminder, property crimes are those that include offenses such as burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. And violent crimes include those offenses such as rape, robbery, murder, and aggravated assaults. So now you'll be able to see that crimes related to property were reduced. They did experience some reductions throughout the later years, but did show a spike in last calendar year. Now, violent crimes had small increases during the height of COVID, but no huge decreases were noticed throughout the state. Now, I wanted to create another snapshot based on the types of crime. So you'll be able to see based on year and the count based on the type of crimes here. You will be able to see that larceny did reign supreme, as I mentioned when I was showing my snapshot of Python. But larceny did reign supreme throughout the state, with although it did experience consistent reductions that may have been noticed throughout the state, given that it dropped from about 400,000 down to 300,000. So that's worth mentioning. Now, for burglary, they did also experience, you'll see they also did experience consistent decreases over the last 5 years. Although motor vehicle theft was relatively flat with the spike recorded in the last year. You'll be able to see that here. Now, for those violent crime offenses, all but one of the each crime types were flat or recorded some type of reductions, small reductions. The only one type of violent crime that had increases was aggravated assault. So one can assume that the increases in crime were due to the height of the pandemic. Now, without having conducted a correlation analysis, I cannot definitively say that COVID, there was a correlation between COVID and the spikes of aggravated assaults. But I would imagine that with people being trapped in the house and unable to move and move as they desire, that people were being around those friends and families and may have been more agitated, being in their presence more. But the main point of this analysis here is to drive the idea that although there were positive shifts in some crime types, there were opposing negative shifts in others, leading one to believe that it was almost an equal flush in the type of crime, that being specifically the decreases in larceny and the increases in aggravated assaults. Okay, moving on. So I did want to include a snippet of this the city size, which you'll see that medium-sized cities, based on, as I mentioned earlier, based on my individual selected range, experience the most crime activities in all categories and types. This also can be due to the fact of the city size ranges that I decided to select, but I want to communicate that if I was to continue this project, I would look at seeing how many cities throughout the state of Ohio make up each of the city size types, such as the small, medium, and or large. Analyze the impact COVID had correlation wise to each crime reported. And then look at, if possible, police staffing levels to see if the state law enforcement agencies realized gains in their staffing levels. And I would also look at how crime activity panned out in 23 to 25 to see if COVID did have a lasting effect on crime or if that was just a fluke, those decreases that were realized and displayed earlier. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the agile methods implemented during this cohort that enabled me to successfully complete this project and deliver these insights to anyone interested in this project type. But I do want to communicate that I'm extremely grateful to have learned the differences between having a growth and fixed mindset, at which I was able to embody the traits of the former in order to overcome the challenges experienced and persevere through the difficult and unknown situations / topics discussed throughout this curriculum. Please note that we also discuss many agile frameworks, at which we were able to implement both Scrum and Kanban types. We did use the Scrum method, the Scrum framework in our daily stand-ups. We had been divided into teams where we had a Scrum leader, product owner, and team members, at which all did contribute to their individual capstone projects, but we also did have team-related projects, which we also worked on collaboratively. Now, we did use the Kanban framework to track and discuss all to-do items, in-progress items, any bottlenecks that we experienced, and completed tasks throughout the curriculum and cohort. Some of the measured progress that the way we measured progress throughout this cohort was via daily stand-ups. We had sprint reviews and retrospectives throughout the program. As you can see down here in this snippet of our Jira board, we did have those. You'll be able to see the time frames as well as the different sprints that we had throughout the cohort. And thank you for your time for looking at my presentation today.